Welcome to this episode of Collab Lab, Collaborative Professional of Washington's interview series in which we speak with experienced family law attorneys about how they introduce collaborative divorce to prospective clients. Our goal is to learn about the varied approaches that practitioners use to explain the process and highlight the benefits of collaborative practice. These interviews are part of CPW's ongoing efforts to support and strengthen our professional community. Hello. My name is Jesse Deason. I work as a financial neutral out of Everett, Washington. In today's episode, we're speaking with Jeanine Vhan, a collaborative attorney in Everett, Washington. So thank you, Jeanine, for joining us and sharing your perspective.
Thank you, Jesse, for having me.
So Jeanine, how did you get into collaborative?
I had heard about it in the very beginning of my law career. So my first attorney I worked for was trained by Stu Webb.
For the newer folks listening who are newer to collaborative, can you give a minute and tell us who Stu Webb is?
Stu Webb is essentially the founder of the collaborative process. He was based in Minnesota. And he started it there, and it has gone international. So it's a process that looks different where you are in different regions of the country, different regions of the world, but it's a process that all essentially has the same fundamentals. So my first attorney I worked for was trained by Stu. That was down in San Diego. So I was exposed to it, learned about it. LA too had a collaborative community. She wanted me to get a little more litigation experience because I was brand new as an attorney before I started collaborative, because she wanted me to have kind of the contrast, what the laws were, how they worked. So I didn't get to fully go back into it. I moved up to Orange County for a few years before moving up to Washington. And finally, it wasn't until I found the job essentially in the office that I'm in, the firm has changed, that I got the opportunity to go back into it. So when I learned I was working for two attorneys that were collaboratively trained, and they had heard that I had at least known about it, knew what it was and that kind of thing, they told me, all right, you're getting collaboratively trained. And so within a few months of starting the position was a training, I think by KCCL years ago. And so I've had the training for a long time. And I do actually think that the collaborative can bring a lot of things to litigation practice as well. And I know this isn't about litigation, but I still use my allied professionals so in different ways. For example, Jesse, I've worked with you on a case that's been litigation. I have somebody who doesn't really know their financials or different financial pictures, and someone does financial planning in a divorce context. So I can send them still and have some background information. I have a case with another collaborative attorney, but the parties didn't want to be collaborative, but we sent them to one of the communications coaches and they worked out a parenting plan. We, the attorneys, did mediation the traditional way for the financials. So there are different ways and different things, but I think understanding and learning about it is helpful. So I came about it probably from a different way than other people, because back then when I went to law school, collaborative was not something they taught in school. It was something you learned in practice.
So Jeanine, tell me a little bit about yourself and your collaborative practice.
I do both litigation and collaborative, and I've been trained since 2008, but I haven't had as many cases. Spreading the word and getting it out there for collaborative in Snohomish County hasn't gone out as far, but I do enjoy collaborative cases. Having the litigation side helps me understand how things go there to bring into collaborative to talk or not talk about the law, how things are going. I have the experience from litigation to say if clients want to know if I'm in court, where would things come down?
How do you respond when someone asks you, what do you do for a living, Jeanine?
Being an attorney is only one a part of me for a living. I'm a mother and a wife and all of those things. But I tell them I'm an attorney. And then usually they ask what kind of attorney. And I say family. And they go, oh, I'm like, it is a helping profession. And I try and help people uncouple whatever that looks like, whether they're married, not married, kids, no kids. It's a matter of uncoupling for the couple. And that kind of set the different tone of thinking about things like saying a divorce attorney, and people immediately think of litigation and harshness and the worst sides of things. So I tell them I'm working on uncoupling. And sometimes there's follow-up questions on what that is, but usually they stop and go, oh, okay, I never thought of it that way.
All right, let's segue a little bit and talk about what it looks like with your work with prospects. So tell me about what it looks like at your firm when a prospective client reaches out.
So they usually come in Either they'll find me through the website or word of mouth. Sometimes they don't even know that they're talking about the concept of collaborative till they've come into my office and sat down with me, and I'm like, oh, it sounds maybe this route is good for you. So when for me in my office, I do have a paralegal. So when they call in, they would talk to the paralegal about setting up a consultation. And my paralegal can usually figure out a little bit about maybe what kind of process, but I'm the one who usually talks about all the different processes in my consult. What are different ways to do things from the kitchen table to heavy duty litigation? But I also can talk about collaborative during that time as well.
Tell me about the initial consult. Do prospective clients pay? How long is it? What are your goals for that consult?
Sure. In my office, yes, they do pay, but they only pay for the time that's used. So typically, consults for me last about an hour. Part of it is getting to know them getting to know me to make sure we have a right stylistic fit. Not to mention, I'm finding out more information about them, what's going on, and I can talk to them about different processes. They may come in with questions. So I usually, it's about an hour. So if they go a little bit less, I don't charge them the full amount. So it's not just 1 hour of time, but it's my usual hourly rate. I know some attorneys discount consults or do things differently, but mine is just on my hourly rate. And as for the goal for it, again, finding out what it is. One of the things too, I want to find out when I talk about which way to go is what kind of communication do they have? How do they communicate with one another? To know whether or not, if they cannot communicate one at all, I can talk to them about collaborative, but it's probably not the way that, that they're going to go. Also, if they have huge emotions, we just have to go through a checklist of things to see what process might be best for them. And if that can be changed. Some people come in with a lot of emotion, but in collaborative, we can handle that if we need to.
So when you're explaining the different process options, do you have a visual or is it all just you're explaining it?
For me, I wish I had a visual. So I explain it. And I talk about collaborative as being a souped up mediation that is a team approach to help people get through the process. And at the end of it, usually the parties are not necessarily the goal isn't to get them back together. The goal is to get them uncoupled. And if they want to remain in a good standing type of relationship, they can. Usually with kids, the example is that they both still have to co-parent long after they've gone through this process. And where do they want to be? In sitting in the same room as that person as the kids get married or college graduations, or are the kids going to have to decide who to invite? But I do talk about the team members, what their roles are, and the benefit of that they get a financial neutral that can look at the finances and come up with different scenarios for us to talk about the role of a mental health professional to help with communication moving forward. Not that they're doing therapy to get them back together, because they hear a therapist and they're what? No, it's not marriage counseling. It's to help the communication. And a lot of people like that idea because a lot of times it's communication that has gotten to the point of needing to come in to see me.
In your initial consult, are you trying to screen for any issues, domestic violence, substance abuse, mental health?
Always. I want to know all the skeletons in the closet as well, both sides. What would they say about you? What would you say about them? To know, is there a power and control dynamic? Is there physical abuse? Is there sexual abuse? Do we have an underlying substance abuse problem? Probably the person sitting in front of me is not going to admit that it's them, but you can ask some kind of follow-up questions. And if they're saying it about the other person, and they might be willing to say, if the other person's saying in a consult talking about you, what would they say? To get them talking about self-reflection a little bit. And we do look for the mental health. Sometimes they're hard to see and hard to know, or the person in front of you is maybe ashamed to want to bring that out in public, but it may come out. But we need to know as a collaborative team what kind of issues. It's helpful to know ahead of time, the sooner the better, rather than getting into the process and going, wait, we have an underlying issue that may be impacting something, say somebody being able to hold down a job if they have a substance abuse problem, if they can't get up in the morning to go to work. And it also is a drain on the finances because they're paying for whatever it is that they're doing, and also safety concerns for the kids, depending on what it is. That's just an example.
Do you ask at all about whether there's a possibility of reconciling or what has gotten the marriage to this point? Do you get in those kind of personal details?
I don't know about reconciling, but I do more so talk about what got them to this point to have an understanding, one, emotionally, where are they? If there's somebody who's had an affair for a while and already somewhat checked out the door, that's in a different position. And does the other person even know about it yet? Do they know if they're in my office? Have they talked even about the idea of separating or divorce? So I do try to find out where they're at and what brought them here because, again, through the process, there may be some emotions around it. If there was an affair and somebody found out on a credit card that there's been purchases for jewelry that was not for them, when you come to talk about that credit card, there may be some emotion about it. So it's helpful to know, but it also is helpful to see, again, are they going to reconcile? I've had people say, I'm not quite sure. And if they're not quite sure, do they want to go down this? At least we're teaching them the processes for when they are sure.
All right. So when you're talking about collaborative, what would you say are some of the common questions you get from prospective clients?
How much does it cost? Because it sounds a lot more costly because you're talking about so many more people involved.
Sure.
Now we're talking about a mental health coach or a communications coach. Sometimes I'll just call them that, a communications coach. So it takes out the mental health stigma. And it's not really a stigma, but some people like to hear a different term. And the financial neutral. And I really try and talk about the benefits of having them. I also talk about how in litigation, the money is more of a curve. It's busy in the beginning. If you're in for temporary orders, it dies down. Then it's up for discovery and then it dies down. And then mediation and it's up and down. And then trial, of course, is a big amount if you're in trial. With collaborative, it's a lot more even, but you get the benefit of having a team to try and get you through and in a less acrimonious way, but working together for the benefit of both people versus one person on each side. So money is a big concern. And I also talk about that it's through the process, they can talk about where the money is going to come from. So it helps that they can have a say of, okay, maybe here, but also if maybe somebody doesn't have access to the funds and someone else does, we can say, let's talk about coming over here. Maybe you have a savings account of X amount of dollars. We can talk about where it's going to come from rather than each person going, I have to come up with how much and where am I going to come up with the money? That it's okay to talk about using some of the joint assets in different ways. One of the other things with collaborative that I do bring up is that it's a lot more creative process that, and again, this goes to not only funds and how things are funded, but just the way things go and settlement ideas that now you have a few more people coming up with different creative ways to come up with something that might work for them.
So when someone asks about cost, do you ever give them a ballpark figure?
It's hard to do that. I usually say the attorney answer is it depends, but I will probably say it's at least 10,000, if not more. It depends on what county I'm in too, because I also practice Snohomish, Skagit, and Whatcom, and the hourly rates for the attorneys in the different counties are different. And so I sometimes don't like to give ballparks because I really don't know how many meetings we're going to need. It depends on the needs of the parties, and I haven't met the other side yet to know, are they someone who needs a lot of process? I've had this case before as my client's like, ready, okay, I'm ready, let's make agreements. And the other person needs to stop and have the explanation of, okay, this is what's going on. And the realization that there's maybe not be enough money to go around. And now what do I do? Where my client at that point was like, okay, I got it, let's go. So it's hard to say a dollar amount. What I know is how much I charge in the beginning, depending on the case, will also vary. But I have a ballpark how much I'm charging and then how much maybe some of the other professionals. But again, it may not be coming directly out of their pockets.
That $10,000, is that for your role alone or for the whole process?
No, I would say what I'm trying to do is say a minimum for the process. My role alone, I don't charge that much as a beginning, but again, it depends on how many times I have to meet with my client. Do they need a lot of hand holding in the background? But one thing I do talk about is the benefit of the professionals because someone coming to see you, Jesse, if the parties can come to you and do some of the work outside of the full team, your hourly rate, even if it may be close to mine, it's still cheaper for you to have two people in the room than each of the parties working on, say, a financial declaration with their attorneys and then coming back together. So there are benefits when I do talk about costs to have, and the communications coach can also help smooth things through at a faster rate than if they were trying to slug it through with mediation, like a traditional mediation with attorneys. The 10,000 is a very at a minimum, but so even at that, when they hear 10,000, they're like, I'm like, it's going to be more. I just can't tell you how much. And I do talk about some of these things about how much process, how many meetings, the benefits of having neutrals do some of the work outside of a full team meeting.
Any other common questions that you get when you bring up collaborative with prospective clients?
First of all, they may or may not know what it is. So that's the first thing when I bring it up. They're like, what is that? Let me tell you. When I talk to them about what it is, and because I don't have handouts, I will give them some websites to look at. CDW, Collaborative Divorce Washington,
Mhm.
is one. For me, I'm part of the Whatcom County Collaborative Professional Group. That's another. I know King County Collaborative has got stuff on their website. And of course, there's IACP, the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals, alphabet soup that I just ran through. But because also too, it takes two people to be in collaborative, and I only have one person in my office. And if they're going to try and talk to their significant other about using this process, they too would potentially want some word tracks and to have some background about what it is besides just what I'm saying. And they're hearing it and how much they're processing of what I'm telling them. You know, there's a lot of information that happens at a consult. So I give them those websites so they can go to it, reread, get some word tracks in case they want to be able to talk with their significant other about going down this way. Other questions though, what does it look like? How do we choose our team members? And for that, we can, like with the Whatcom group, we have a list of attorneys, all the professionals, all the allied professionals, the communications coaches and the financial neutrals. And we can say, if you want, here's a list of people to start with. If not, again, CDW has got the list of attorneys. It kind of depends on where they are geographically. I say Whatcom because we've got a good group there, and most of us work with one another, or if not, we do a lot together. So when we work with one another, we've got the trust built to do so a little bit better. But it doesn't mean I can't work with anybody in the state if there's a Zoom, and you can file anywhere in the state. So how do you choose your team members? And then the other part with choosing it is finding two attorneys that are both collaboratively trained. And then with the other professionals, then usually the attorneys chat with one another, kind of talk about the case, talk about the issues of the case. Again, are we seeing some of these kind of DV, mental health, substance abuse, or a strong personality, high assets and debts or not? What kind of a case? And then usually the attorneys have worked with some professionals and we can come to an agreement on who we think might be good. And that goes personality wise too.
So when you have someone in your office who says, I think this might be a good fit, you send them some links to IACP, CDW. Are there any other next steps that you suggest? Do you offer to hop on a call with the spouse?
Depends. First of all, they need to hire me if I'm going to go next steps with them.
Okay.
If they want to test the waters first and see what's happening with their spouse, and if they can't get on board with collaborative, which way are they coming back if they're going to use me? Is it for litigation or for collaborative? But if it's collaborative, we can either hop on a call with the spouse. It depends on how their communication is. We can send an email and kind of doing introduction. Hey, here's some also websites to look at. This is the kind of process we'd like to go. Let me know, because sometimes on a call, they may not know right off the top of the head what collaborative is or want to be pinned down right then and there. But we don't have to pin them down. We can talk about it and have them make a decision and then come back as well. Yes, I can take some next steps. It just, to some extent, it's up to the client which way, because sometimes I do have clients, I want to do collaborative, and then they say, no, or the other side has found an attorney who's doesn't want to do collaborative. And at that point, we can see about trying to do cooperative, but not necessarily the full collaborative route.
What might you learn in a consult where you decide, oh, they're definitely not a fit for collaborative?
A true heavy duty power and control dynamic. I just recently finished up probably a 3.5, 4 year case that originally my client came in and there's domestic violence, some physical, mostly, and it was before the statute changed. And mostly it was coercive control and financial control and emotional. And the statute changed to include all that. And she's, oh my gosh. The husband went and talked to a collaborative attorney. Let's do this collaboratively. And I could just see that she would not have the ability, the interpersonal strength to be able to say no or to challenge because she had been in this relationship for so long. So I said, no, we need to go the traditional route. And ultimately, the case is done. And yes, there was found to be domestic violence, but I don't think the case would have been good for collaborative just right from the get-go. So if there's really physical abuse too, that too can be problematic. I usually don't try not to do with domestic violence in the collaborative realm because I just don't know what the background is or the safety is, depending on what the level is and what it is.
So the
Oh,
consult has concluded. Is there any follow up, either by you or your paralegal?
quite honestly, it depends on how busy we are. If we can, if we haven't heard from them by, say, a week or so, if they haven't signed up already, do a quick follow up. Hey, how are things going? Maybe they got busy. Maybe they are waiting to talk to their significant other at the right time and it hasn't been. Maybe they had a work trip the next day. And so I usually try. Sometimes that ability to do follow up is dependent on just how busy I am at the time. But I want to have that kind of customer service piece. And even if they don't decide to hire me, that's fine. Then we can close that loop. And I'm like, then somebody's just not out there and I'm wondering when they're going to come back. At the end of the consult, when we're ending, if they're not hiring me right then and there, I just say, let us know when you're ready and then give a call back and either we can schedule a time for a short follow-up consult so I can find out what's going on or to know when they're coming with litigation too and also collaborative. We don't know how busy we are sometimes that if they come back and all of a sudden I'm busy and I did the consult when I wasn't to say I could do this in this amount of time, that changes. So I want to give them more realistic expectations of what we've talked about, even in terms of with collaborative to be able to pick up and schedule a call with opposing counsel. Because sometimes by then we know who the other attorney is. And I shouldn't say opposing counsel because in collaborative it's the other attorney.
Any more about your prospect process, the consult process before we move on?
I do want to get a visual for them to take home about collaborative and what it is, even if it's something just showing here's what the team looks like so they can take something home. We do so much so via Zoom and then we could email it to them like a little flyer for me finding the time to do it. I probably should have done it when my daughter was young, do little stick figures, put all the people together and I could go through and label it, but that time has passed. She's a little older now, but just getting something for them to take away would be good.
All right. What would you say are the best ways to build relationships with other collaborative practitioners in advance of having cases together?
Networking, just going to events, being a part of a pod. The big one, going to the CPW conference, that can be, depending on who your personality is, having a lot of people at once can be a little overwhelming. And everybody's doing things, and some people already know each other. But I do think joining either groups or pods are helpful to start seeing familiar faces. Again, different pods are different sizes. And then they will do events. Besides, a lot of times they do teachings and trainings, which are great, but that doesn't give you sometimes the insight to meet people. So the events that they have, say a happy hour, is good to kind of network with. When I first started out just as an attorney, if there was somebody I knew, I'd say, let's get together. Can I take you for coffee and pick your brain or do things like that? I was lucky in the sense that when I got my job where I'm at now, the two women that I was working for were both collaboratively trained and already in the community. And so they were helping introduce me to people. And so that helps. And then you start talking to different people who then maybe meet other people. So I do think that's really helpful. If you're new wanting to be on a board for one of the local, say, if you're Pierce County or King County, being on the board of their local collaborative associations also is another great and get to know people because then it's working together and they get to know your style as who you are in a working capacity.
I'll add that you don't necessarily need to even be on the board to be able to volunteer for Pierce County or King County or even CPW. We're always looking for
That's true.
volunteers on committees and other
Yep.
one-off events.
That is very true. That is very true. And yes, that is a good way to do things.
So the purpose of these interviews is to help practitioners improve on how they talk about collaborative with prospective clients. What words of wisdom do you have for a newer practitioner who is trying to increase their collaborative caseload?
Getting the word out to people who can get the word out. And what I mean by that is when people ask you what you do, say you're getting your hair done, you can talk to them besides just saying, I help people uncouple, but I'm also got this great process that I'm trained in. And you talk to them about doing something like that. And you could ask, hey, if I leave a couple business cards, Would that be okay? Because that person who's like doing my hair is going to see a lot of different people who have lots of different stories, and they may run into people. Talking to somebody who knows people, such as somebody from, if you're part of a church or synagogue, talking to someone there about the process, they can help spread the word. Your nail person, again, these are more female things, but you can go to your barber too. Guys have that. So there are different places for people who know people. I make friends with the Trader Joe's clerks that I go every week. So I see them on a regular basis and they know what I do. And so I've talked to them about this. They see people who see people, and they may be, because I see them regularly, they're like, oh, let me get this person's name the next time. That person might be it. I have gotten a few referrals that way. One of the Trader Joe's, it was a while ago, but you don't know who's going to say something, but that's a great thing. The other way I think is helpful is really to have a collaborative forward website, because if people have heard the word, they may not know where to go. And if your website has got things that are more supportive of it, it's going to pop up sooner. I'm not the magician for websites, but I do know. And again, CPW has had the person who does our website come and do website reviews and say, how much in the collaborative are you? What kind of some things you can do to tweak up your website to make it better? So I do think having that is an important piece of it. Again, word of mouth. If your friends and family know what you do, they can also talk about you. But I get referrals from all different places and people who have used me in different ways. So even if someone's coming to me for litigation, if they know I'm doing collaborative, they may know someone who wants to do that process, even if it didn't work for them.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap up for today?
I think it's a great process and I do believe in it. I've had very successful cases. I've had cases that, down the line just didn't work out, and we all learn from them. I think as a practitioner, it's great to always be learning and working on the craft so we can do this in a better manner. And so we learn from each of our cases, but I do believe in the process, and I do believe in the end it is better for our clients, just overall, emotionally, financially, even. They can spend a lot more money not realizing it in litigation, and they feel supported. We're building teams and building the trust component, which is a huge part of it. And coming out of this, they have a lot more there than if they were at war with one another, or even going through the litigation process, because I've done some very close to collaborative cases, but they just don't have that kind of signing of the participation agreement to say, we are trusting each other with this team. We're going to build it. I do think that there's a component there. So overall, I do enjoy the collaborative cases that I have. I can't say they're all easy, because going collaborative doesn't mean it's easy. It just means it's a better process than litigation.
Thank you, Jeanine, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. If someone listening wants to know more about your practice, how can they get more information?
Sure. Feel free to email me, Jeanine, Jeanine at nvllaw.com, or give me a call, or just look me up on the website. Feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email to say, hey, can we chat? I'm happy to chat with you.
All right. And just a quick little personal shout out to Jeanine, who introduced me to collaborative law many years ago. I had a coffee date with a random financial advisor who wanted to know more about the family law space, and here I am. So thank you, Jeanine.
Thank you, Jesse.
All right, so thank you for listening to this episode of Collab Lab. We hope you found the discussion helpful as you think about how to introduce collaborative divorce to your prospective clients in your own practice.
All right, good luck, everybody.
Thank you.